It's time for Dart Talk. Brought to you by thedartzone.com. Stay in the zone. Thedartzone.com is an official Cosmo distributor and Windy City Fabricators, America's premier fabricators of orthotics and prosthetics. And Redwood Darts, America's newest tungsten darts. Stand straight and tall and hit them all. Redwood Darts. And now, here are your hosts, Mystery Mark and Steve P.
Okay, welcome to Dirt Talk.
Welcome.
Mystery Mark and Steve Penuncielman, August 28th, 2012. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. How was, you played Cog Hill last week?
I did play Cog Hill. It was fun. A lot of fun. I didn't play well, but that's expected since it's a harder course that it's different than playing a dog track that I'm used to playing all the time. So I was happy to be out there, but it was definitely a challenge.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Cog Hill's where they've been playing the Western Open, and when it became the FedEx Cup, they were still playing it. I don't know if it's every other year now or anything.
Yeah,
Very
but actually they lost it too.
Did they?
Going to a different course next year, but anyway. But yeah, it's rated it's always rated in the top 10 of public courses in the country.
Yeah, I've never played it. I took my dad there to see the Western Open, and we camped out on the 9th green, that par 5, the uphill par 5, and
it's definitely a nice course. But it was fun, for sure. So what's up with you?
I got an interesting phone call today.
Yeah?
I had a kind of do-nothing practice weekend. Well, it was interesting. See, now, just a reminder, we're brought to you by the Dart Zone.
Stay in the zone.
TheDartZone.com is an official Cosmo distributor. Yeah, I want to get to this phone call. Run the disclaimer real quick, and then we can get to business here.
All right. The views and opinions expressed or implied by guests and or hosts on Dart Talk do not prima facie represent the universe of thought of the aforementioned, notwithstanding the permissions and exclusions set forth below. Any enjoiners, rejoiners, litanies, epiphanies, demurrers, Todd doers, past or future acts or facts not presently in evidence either in or around the underworld, the Oversoul, or any other copyrighted Fantasyland, Candyland, or neutral party to the agreements and understandings set forth in this or any related memoranda will not perish from this show.
How you liking that thing?
Always good to get that out of the way.
Well, I'm going to have to get Jill's mom to write us another one because,
I think she would probably come up with something clever.
That one's hard to read. I read it, the one show you missed, and I afterwards I was like, holy cow. Who wrote this piece of garbage anyway? Anyway.
Phone call. You got a phone
very
call.
Interesting phone call. See, here.
Do you say from whom first, or do you describe the phone call first?
Well, I haven't said yet, because it was interesting insofar as somebody just out of the blue called me up and said, I represent an organization that is basically the Chamber of Commerce for 62 suburbs and municipalities in southern Chicago, the south suburbs and the southwest suburbs, from the Indiana border all the way west of Orland Park to Homer's Glen and all the way north to Midway Airport. And he's like, well, we tried to get a dart tournament here some years ago, and I was just wondering if you were interested in, getting a dart tournament going here. And I'm like, well, that's very interesting. So I'm going to talk to the guy tomorrow, because I'm of the opinion that if you can find a venue that'll work with you.
Right.
If you can find a hotel that, really wants to fill their rooms and is willing to cut you a deal where you don't have to pay for the banquet hall, and they're not going to gouge everybody on food and beverages, you have a chance to get a tournament going that can break even. Now, I'm not worried about, actually making money.
Yeah.
Just breaking even is what was killing the tournaments in Chicago. These guys could not negotiate a hotel where they're paying, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 just for the banquet hall. They're selling, $6 drafts and this horrible food, and everybody's just sort of like, what, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What do I want to come here for? And then, the pros are there, so the locals are like, I'm going to pay all this money and then be one and done, with the typical tournament stuff. And
when did you receive this phone call? Is it just
like an hour before the show?
Oh, really?
And I'm just sort of like, how did you get my number?
Right.
And he got it off the ADO website because I'm listed as the ADO rep.
That's right.
And we haven't had one in I don't know how long. And he's like, oh, I talked to somebody in 2004 and mentioned somebody's name who's still on the ADO. And I'm like, oh, really? He's like, well, yeah, we tried to get a national tournament. I'm like, yeah, how'd that work out for you? So
I guess it's not very well.
I found it funny, but it reinforced my notion.
It's intriguing.
Well, yeah, he's, and I'm thinking December's wide open. There's never anything in December.
Snow.
Wow. There's snow in January and February, too, and there's
too.
tournaments every weekend. So it doesn't seem to bother anybody else. I mean.
Right.
So I don't know. I found that interesting.
Well, you'll have to tell us how that conversation goes.
You'll have to stay tuned because we're talking about having a national championship and all this stuff. And if I could find a venue in Chicago that was suitable, I'd be willing to have Dart Talk do the national championship next year. We'll have to figure out what the majors are and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But like an invitational thing where if you play in the majors and if you're ranked this and if you're ranked that, you come to Chicago in December, and then you play long format 5-0, and maybe do like a seeded round robin, and then I don't know.
It's kind of like a Breeders' Cup type deal.
Well, it would
best
be
of the best for the year.
It would be nice. Unfortunately, we're geographically challenged here in the States. It would be nice to have something like they have in England, where it's like, you play some really long format thing, and then if you win, you play the next day. But then who wants to travel if they're only going to play one day and all this stuff, and then you can't have the thing running for 3 weeks like they have the World Championship.
Right.
That thing starts, and if you win the first round, you're off for 10 days. Like one year, Darren won his match and then flew home, and then had to fly back.
Right.
I mean, and another year he said, I'm not going to fly back, and he spent Christmas with Terry Jenkins, and it turned out he had to play him after Christmas. And I'm like, oh, well. Should have given him a better present for Christmas. Put something under his tree. Maybe, he'd have taken it easy on it. I don't know. Whatever, just rambling on here. We have a lot of results. We have Major League Darts results from Myrtle Beach and New Brunswick.
Right.
We have DPNY results. We also we have their current standings. After Event 5 for the men and Event 3 for the women, we can update people on that. Oh, God, what did I spend? 9 hours watching Darts Live?
9 hours.
Yeah, it started at like 1 in the morning, Sunday morning, and it wasn't over until 9, and I pretty much watched it straight through.
Really?
So we could talk about the Darts Live. I talked to a bunch of people who were in London, Ontario for the PDC tournament. We got results from that. We're not going to have time to read everybody's results, but the PDC results are on the PDC homepage, which is if you go to pdc.tv, and click on enter the website or whatever, you can get
the results.
The Darts Live Asia ones are also up. I don't remember the link offhand, but I will post. I'll post links to the results on the Dart Talk Facebook page so people can get complete results on all that stuff. And then we did promise something.
Yes,
what did
we did.
Promise? What are we calling it? The official Dart Talk.
I don't know the name. We just talked about
practice guide for beginners.
Practice guide for beginners.
You're going to have to write this stuff down. I mean, I can't be expected to remember everything.
It's basically a practice guide for beginners to get. Also with the time challenge, it's kind of introducing the time challenge in a practice guide in order to maximize your time in order to become as good a dart player as you can.
Right, and that's going to take some setup because I was talking to a young lady in Nashville who was telling me about how she was practicing, and she's explaining it, and I'm just thinking to myself, this is totally not going to work. There are some misconceptions that people have about practicing that we should disabuse them of immediately so they don't fall into this trap, right? And I don't know if we should start with that or whatever. Let me just set this up before we go into the first break. Where I'm coming from practice-wise, right? My notion of practice is that you don't have to practice 8 hours a day to get good. If you practice intelligently and you do the right things and you have the right outlook on practice, you can improve rapidly. And for a beginner who's got nowhere to go but up, I mean, they can improve in leaps and bounds, and you see this. I'm sure everybody sees it if they play if they see the new players in whatever league they play in. There's always a couple of guys or a couple of girls that like really get into it and improve, and by the end of the season they're playing better than some of the other people in the league. Right.
A little bit of we've talked about before. If you only have 10 minutes, make the 10 minutes count. Don't just willy-nilly throw darts for 10 minutes.
Right. So let me explain where I'm coming from with this and try to be lucid about it. So I'm talking to this girl in Nashville, and she's like, well, she's been playing not for a long time, but she kind of knows her way around the board. And she's like, well, I don't understand. I'm practicing doubles, but I'm missing them. And I say, well, what do you mean you're practicing doubles? So the idea that beginners have is if they just throw at a number often enough, eventually they're going to hit it all the time.
Right.
Doesn't really work that way, right? It doesn't really work that way. And I don't know if I'd said this on the show before or not. I mean, we've been doing this show for a while. So, I mean, at some point I probably repeat myself. But
you repeat yourself every day.
Really?
Doesn't mean over a year and a half of a show.
Well, let's see if I can explain this. A lot of beginners come up to me and they say, I'm having a hard time hitting doubles. And what I generally want to say to them is that you're not having a hard time hitting doubles. What you're having a hard time doing is missing within your margin for error. So if a beginner plays cricket and they throw they're throwing 3 darts at the 20 and they get 2 to go in, they feel like they threw a 2 count.
Correct.
Right? And they feel like 2 out of their 3 darts were good. Well, your margin for error going for the 20 is a couple of inches higher or lower, the triple, right? You don't have the same margin of error when you're shooting at a double. So what happens invariably is that beginners don't realize that they're missing by the same margin that they usually miss
going for a single.
But they don't notice it because you get credit for it, right? I don't know how many beginners I've seen go for the triple 20 and they fall into a triple 18, or they're going for the 19 and they fall into a triple 17 or a triple 15, whatever.
Doesn't matter, right?
And it's hard not to feel good about that because you got something out of it. You closed a number, you got your points, whatever. But the fact is that you missed by a very wide margin, right? So until you start to realize that even though you got a 1 count, it was still a bad miss. The kind of thinking that you need to start closing in and become more accurate isn't there yet. I'm not even sure that was a coherent
that makes sense
sentence.
to me.
You see what I'm saying? So, if you always miss, if you generally miss by 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and you're playing 501, you're going to get credit for every dart you throw.
Yeah.
But then the minute you miss by 2 inches on a double, it looks disastrous. Right. That's where I start talking about when you practice, what are you practicing and stuff like that. And what is your goal, right? It doesn't do a whole lot of good to just stand there and throw at the 20 for hours and hours and hours if you've got some fundamental reason that you're missing by 1.5 inches all the time. If you fix that and then practice whatever you need to do to fix that, it doesn't matter what you're aiming at. You'll eventually,
it's more fundamentals, not what you're aiming at.
Well,
to an extent.
And so the idea here is it's kind of hard to debug somebody's stroke from, totally blind, because people do things in a lot of different ways. But I did jot down some easy ways that people listening to the show can kind of analyze their own game and be like, huh. And this is very much tailored for beginners, but will also help pretty much anybody who's trying to improve. Where are we on time?
Are we on the first break?
Yeah. Okay. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to have a sip of coffee, and then we'll be right back, and we'll continue where we left off. This is Dart Talk, brought to you by the Dart Zone. Seat up there in the corner?
Yeah.
right, so what results you want to start with? Let's do the MLD first, then we come back. Because nobody got back to them.
No, she did it all in the same minute.
You ready?
All right, so you want to go? You want to do what? This.
Yeah, do them both. Okay. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we're back. Brought to you by the Dart Zone.
Stay in the zone.
TheDartZone.com is an official Cosmo distributor. Before we get back to all this practice stuff that scared away one of the people in the chat room, let's do some results. Let's start with the Major League Darts that were in Myrtle Beach and Penfield, New Brunswick.
Penfield, New Brunswick, the Dart Digger results. We'll go with the consolation best of 5. Scott Tracy beats Tony Solomon 3-1. Top 4 goes to Derek Hanley and Doug Higgins. Second place goes to Rodney Connor, and first place goes to Jeremy Miller, who beat Rodney Connor 8-2.
Right, and that was Donald Higgins, top 4.
What did I say?
Doug.
Oh, sorry, Donald. 4-person open shoot. First place goes to Derek Hanley, Scott Tracy, Jeremy Miller, and Jeff Clark. And then in your Myrtle Beach Summer Sizzle, top 4 in the men's, Mike Elder-Broom and Pat Hewitt. Second place goes to Robbie Phillips, and Brian Blake beat Robbie Phillips 8-7 to win that. The consolation best of 5, Donovan Powell won 3-2 over Fred Copeland. And your ladies' winners are top 4, Sandy Hudson and Heidi Channel. Second place goes to Julie Chappelle. And first place, Candy Ellis, who beat Julie 8-5.
Okay, congrats to Heidi Chanel. And runner-up, nice runner-up there for Julie Shepley.
Nice.
Let's do that as long as we're doing. Let's do the DPNY as well.
Ladies Tour event number 3.
Right, and these were all in New York City.
Top 8: Robin Curry, Aaron Quinn, Carolyn Willis, and Jen Schaefer. Top 4: Gloria Gutierrez and Jackie Clark. Sue Kovac won second, with Callie West beating Sue Kovac 3-1 to win that event.
Right, and congrats to everybody who played that. We do have the list now for the DPNY Atlantis Ladies Tour after 3 events. 8th is Debbie Burkich, Audrey Garcia 7th, Nikki Carey 6th, Robin Curry 5th, Jen Schaefer 4th, Callie West 3rd, Jackie Clark 2nd, and Susanna Kovac is leading the way there with 23 points. And we also, for the men, in the DPNY Open players, we'll just do, we'll do them all. Larry, starting from 16, Larry Watson, Wayne Budgeon, John Gambino, Shauna Arnold, Bill DeWitt, Tim O'Gorman, Brandon Rogers. 9th, T.J. DeArmas. 8th, Ryan Vandewite. 7th, Bones, John Ronholm. 6th, Bob Garzone. 5th, Dave Marienthal. 4th, Paul Burns. 3rd, Jimmy Widd. 2nd, Rich Hammond. And leading with 30 points right now, George Timponi. So congrats, everybody. It's a heck of a field.
Yeah.
It's a lot of good players to be banging heads with, once a month. I am just so jealous. I don't even know where to begin.
That they get to do it? You might have to move to New York?
Well, I was talking to somebody about it. Because it wouldn't be hard to get 8 guys and, start with something like that where, you go around to different venues every month and you play long format 5-0 and everybody throws in, a couple of bucks and you keep track of who's winning and stuff. I mean, it isn't that hard.
Right.
And they're having so much fun there, and it's growing, every year they do it. I mean, they're small venues, so he's got to cap the field, and he's sold out for every event. And it's like, what do I get? It's sad. I'm telling you, I'm in like the black hole of darts.
Right.
I don't know how we can manage to change that. Seriously. Anyway, where did we leave this
we're working
practice
on it,
thing?
But,
I can't do everything.
So, yeah, no. So
where did we leave off?
We're leaving off on realizing that your margin of error, and just to not practice it a bunch of 20s and then think you could go hit a double 10.
Right. Yeah. So the idea is, to become more accurate and to reduce your average margin of error and keep reducing it until you don't miss so much anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Common sense.
And so you have some.
Go ahead.
Some knowledge.
Well,
or some.
When you're talking about beginners, it's a very what some people would say touchy-feely, because if somebody's a natural, you don't want to really change anything. Right? If somebody's really struggling to even come close to hitting something, like if they're throwing for bulls and they're closer to the double than the bullseye, obviously they need to change something. So I did take some notes for the beginners. So when you run across somebody who wants to get good at darts and has played a little bit, there's some basic stuff that you can tell them.
Right.
That we'll tell them. And one is stand as close as you can to the line. Yeah, don't
which makes sense.
Right. But you'd be surprised,
Yeah. Well, some people don't pay attention. They just walk up, put a foot down, and throw the dart.
I've seen people 8 inches behind the line try to play a game with somebody.
Right.
Unfortunately, unless there's an Aki, some of the lines that people put down, they're not sure which side to stand on.
True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
some people don't even know which side of the Aki to stand on.
Right. Yeah.
Even when there is an Aki down, they think you stand at the back.
I just you can't dummy proof everything.
I know.
But standing as close as you can to the line, it would definitely behoove
everybody,
all the players.
Yeah.
And then the one thing, probably the first golf advice you ever had was keep your head still.
Yes.
Keep your head down. It's kind of the same way in darts. Stand still, keep your head still, automatically.
Right.
You could pretty much say that to everybody, and you'd be surprised. You see somebody, throwing a dart, and you'll be like, try to stand still, and they freeze. Because people are used to motion when they're throwing, especially guys. Guys that played baseball when they were kids, played football, played softball, whatever. They're used to, kind of shoulder motion and all this stuff, and it's totally unnecessary. So, for some reason, pool players get it right away.
Well, they have to be steady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no extra movement in pool, right? And
you don't want to move your head in pool either.
Well, no. You don't move anything but your arm, which is kind of what darts is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
So, the question, though, about how much advice do you give a beginner, right? Because you don't want to mess them up.
Yeah.
Right? Which was kind of what the one guy was saying. Is what I would say is
just basics. But you don't want to give them too many basics either. There just has to be.
Well, yeah, but there's have somebody take 10 turns throwing at the bullseye. Right?
Okay.
Count their last 6 turns. Right? Throw away
give them a little warm up.
Yeah. Throw away the first 4. See how many bullseyes they hit. If they hit more than 5 bullseyes in 6 turns and they're a beginner, there isn't a whole lot that you really need to change for them.
Yeah.
Right? Because,
just practice more.
Yeah, I mean, if you see it's obvious that, they're jumping up as they throw or something, tell them, you don't really need to do that. But, But the idea there is if they're not hitting any, I mean, if they throw 24 darts at the bull and they don't hit any, now you can really address their mechanics, because odds are they're doing something incredibly wacky.
Completely wrong.
And their elbows swinging up and down, it's swinging left to right, whatever they may be doing. If they hit, 3 or 4, then that, a couple of tweaks ought to be able to at least get them to the point where they can play a game. And that was the whole idea for this is just get decent enough where you can enjoy playing a game.
Yeah, you're not expecting them to hit 18 out of 24 bullseyes.
No, and you're not going to turn somebody into Phil Taylor with 3 tips.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But the idea here is to get people they're playing decent enough where they can enjoy playing a game with pretty much anybody.
Yeah.
Right? It goes back to, I told you about this one girl at the driving range in California.
Right, yeah.
Right? Her pro wouldn't let her on the golf course for 6 months, and all she did was hit balls at the range, and she shot 79 her first round of her life.
It's pretty amazing.
She could hit the ball down. She could hit the ball straight.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, how many people hate golf because they go out there and the first thing they do is they shoot like 130 and they spend all day looking for their ball and they're like, well, this is no fun.
Yeah.
It's no fun to play cricket when, you know, or 301. They have in Chicago, they got beginners playing 301. I've seen them take 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Because nobody can hit a double one.
Or double in, for that matter.
I've seen beginners play cricket where literally it took them half an hour and they both needed 2 balls, and a half hour later nobody'd hit 2 balls yet.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not gonna have much fun until you kind of learn to at least, you know, play at a decent level.
Sure.
Right? So that was the idea there, and I jotted down some common mistakes if you're trying to coach a beginner that you could look at. And the easiest way to debug something, because I'm blind, I can't really see what they're doing, and, you know, judging by these emails, you know, it's kind of hard to always tell. But one thing that I've always found helpful is look at somebody's dart as it flies in the air. It doesn't matter whether it's hitting what it's aimed at.
Yeah.
What matters is, does it fly straight and true? Is it fishtailing? Does it yaw? You know, is it doing the little curlicue thing in the air, or something like that? If you see a beginner whose dart flies straight in the air, you got a winner. All you got to do is coach them up and teach them how to aim, because they've got the basic stuff down. A dart that flies straight in the air, you've got somebody with a natural, clean release. That's all you need.
Makes sense. Sure.
Right? So, and the other thing is, for beginners, is look at your darts as they sit in the board before you just yank them out. What you're looking for there, the telltale sign of inconsistency, or do they lay the same way in the board? If you got 3 darts in the board and one is kind of pointing one way and one's pointing the other way, yeah, you hit it that time, but odds are you're not going to hit it again.
Yeah.
Right. And if you look at, like, I've seen good players who get into these weird little cycles, I guess you could call it, where if you watch their dart in the air, let's see, so the dart goes like this as it's flying, which means the point is going up and down and up and down and up and down. Well, your margin of error is what for the triple? So
a quarter of an inch?
Even if you're doing that a little bit, unless you're hitting dead center, odds are some of them are going to miss. Some won't, some will. I've never seen a top-level player whose dart does that. And it's a release problem, right?
Yeah.
It's something to do with the way they're letting go of the dart or not letting go of the dart. They're gripping it too tight, what have you. But I've seen good players that go through cycles where they do that. Then the next time I see them, they're not doing it. Then the next time I see them, they are doing it. So it's something that everybody struggles with. Now, ideally, you know, you want your darts to go in the board, I would say, around 15 degrees. You want them a little bit tail up, but you don't want them tipping over like a, Scud missile or something like that. And if they're gonna go in the board tail down, you don't want them drastically tail down because you end up blocking stuff.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Sure.
So, I mean, I used to, work really hard on getting them going at like a 20-degree angle, and now I got them going in flat.
So you don't want yours going in at 15-degree, but it doesn't matter.
Well,
just you're talking about starting off. Just
I kind of changed
consistency of the dart going into the board the same time every time.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you can actually control the angle your darts go in the board if you really try.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on kind of what kind of equipment you're using and stuff like that. I mean, it's hard to take a front-loaded dart and have it go in the board tail down.
Right.
And I don't know why you'd want to, because it's unnatural.
Yeah.
Because a front-loaded dart's going to drive and dive, right? Which is a good thing in a lot of ways. So the practice routine, for the beginner. Like, I didn't really decide on that because I was kind of trying to figure out how to determine what a beginner is and what a beginner isn't. What's the cutoff? You know what I mean? At some point...
Well, I guess you're determining a beginner as somebody that's just getting involved, and you're trying to get them ready to play darts, not necessarily competitively, but just, against people. So you're actually, just like your golf analogy, not out at the bar throwing darts just in playing a game. You're talking about a beginner picking up darts and learning actually how to throw the darts before they get out there and compete, so to speak.
Well, okay. Well, let's say a beginner has played less than 6 months.
Okay.
Of once a week, twice a week.
Once a week.
I don't know. It seems to me that anybody who really likes darts is going to play more than once a week, even if they're beginners. They kind of, if you get into it, you're out there.
Are they playing for an hour? Are they playing for 5 hours? And that one day they're out there.
Well, I experimented today with what I thought would be a good thing for a beginner to do if they're just at home by themselves. And I ran it by my girlfriend Jill, and she's like, I'm like, well, it took me like, maybe 15 minutes. And she just shook her head, and she's like, well, it's going to take me way more.
Which was?
Well, the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, okay, this is probably going to be, way too advanced. But what I did was just to see how long it would take me is I decided I'd start at 41 and go to 60. And I'd go fat 1 tops, fat 2 tops, fat 3 tops, fat 4 tops. And I'd stay on it till I hit it.
Right.
So, and then if I missed the fat, I would try to clean it up. It took me about 15 minutes. And, okay, I guess that's okay.
That seems a little more difficult for a beginner.
Right.
Seems a lot difficult for a beginner.
Right.
Seems difficult for me.
Really? Well, I'm convinced that beginners have to throw at tops.
Okay. Well,
I'm convinced
it's the farthest throw.
Right. So we're okay. Our official practice guide for beginners has to include it has to include tops. So.
But you've now evolved from what you started talking about of just getting them to get used to their margin for error now to a practice round where it could take them hours because
first you have to determine what your level of ability is.
Okay.
It seems to me that even if you've only been playing for 2 or 3 weeks, you might be a natural, in which case some of the a practice routine isn't going to really help if you're way too advanced.
All right. No, that makes more sense. So you're talking this is figuring out your ability. And
right.
Once you got your ability down, there's certain practice routines you could go through.
Right. So we have to call it something, though.
Yeah.
Like if you've been playing for 2 weeks and you can throw more than 5 bullseyes in 6 rounds, then you should have one practice routine, and then if you can't, you should have another. But I know one guy that is he tried to come up with some way of emailing people back and forth to come up with some way to fix people remotely.
Right.
And he came up with this, I think, before YouTube and everything. If I saw YouTube of somebody practicing, like a beginner, and he says, hey, what do you think? And he gave me a couple of camera angles, I'd be kind of like, well, you need to do this, you need to do that, and, that will help.
Yeah, but you could
There's
start
no
out
magic.
You could start out with a whole list, though, and each time whatever you master, then you move on. You know what I'm saying? So even a natural, then, even though if they're doing something that's trivial to them but not to somebody else, it just won't take them that long, and they'll move on and never have to do that again. It's kind of like practicing 3-foot putts. You keep making 3-foot putts over and over and over again.
But you have to make them from different spots. Like you got to put the balls around the hole, and then, so you have to move and set up every time because that's part of a putt. To just stand in one spot and putt the same thing over and over and over again. Well,
that's why you wouldn't. But right. But once you got that down, so just so your practice routine of 44. 1 double tops, 2 double tops could be like number 7 on the list, and there's some people that'll take them a while to get to that in order to that be their practice routine, and then there's some beginners that could fly through 1 through 6.
We have to have a graduated set of exercises,
right?
And then once you do one, you move on.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work.
Sure.
Okay, we'll write that down. Then we'll have to come up with. And then, so what would the last exercise be? We'll work backwards from that. What would the last exercise be before you could say you're no longer a beginner? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're going to end up with a whole, instructional course. Maybe we should just, record that separately and put it out there. because we're going to bore all the people waiting for results. All right, we're up against another break, so we're brought to you by the Dart Zone.
Stay in the zone.
TheDartZone.com is an official Cosmo distributor, and we'll be back in about 90 seconds.
Be able to hold your liquor.
Oh, God. This is going to be way more work than I thought it was going to be. What did we say for beginners, if they only had, a couple of minutes, was to go around the world, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Keep track of how many you hit.
There's different go around the world. There was, what was it? You have 21 darts. You were doing the whole 21 dart thing. You throw 3 darts at each triple, 3 darts at the bull.
What would you do what did you do when you started? You just played, right?
I just played. All I did was play for drinks at the bar, and I just got good.
Just from sheer repetition.
Yeah. I never practiced at home or nothing, but we were at the bar every night playing for drinks, and I would always win. And then eventually I joined a league, and that was it. And I just played. I never got, there was a couple guys that were always better than me, and then I moved up here, and somebody put a steel tip dart in my hand, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was still.
All right. Well, let's start with that then. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we're back for the second half.
Absolutely.
Dart Talk brought to you by the Dart Zone.
Stay in the zone.
TheDartZone.com is an official Cosmo distributor. During the break there, I was asking you, how did you actually start playing?
I worked at a bar. It was all plastic tip. And at the bar, you played for drinks. So we just started playing. Generally, it was cricket. And that was it. I would work there, get done with work. If it wasn't at the end of the night, you'd play for drinks. If you went out there at night, you just played for drinks. And I never knew how to throw a dart, really. I never knew where to stand. I I guess naturally got up there and started throwing darts and playing and just wanted to win.
I don't know if it's because I'm more analytical than some, but I kind of started out the same way. I told you the story. But I hated losing. And I put up a board at home, and I basically would stand in front of the board playing, trying to figure out why I missed.
Yeah. No, I never got to that point.
Why did that go in and the other one not go in?
Right.
It's totally like the Holy Grail. And eventually, I came up with certain keys that worked for me, and I looked at a lot of other people playing, and I did it just so happened that I don't remember who was showing it, but they were showing European darts on TV, and I taped it.
Right.
And I wore out a tape of John Part playing Phil Taylor, where Part took 5 legs in a row off him. I think it was like the match play or something, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, where Part beat him. And I literally would freeze frame it, and I wore that sucker out. I wore that tape out. And that's where I got the idea that, okay, you should probably, do it this way, because, I'm watching 2 guys play, looking to see what they do the same, because they look so different. You got John Part's a big guy. Phil Taylor's like a shorter guy. And what are they both doing? Because they sure don't look the same.
Right.
They're completely and utterly,
yeah.
They look totally different. And I tried to boil it down to what the fundamentals were that I could work on that would work for me.
Yeah.
And to this day, whenever I'm practicing, like I had, a couple weeks off, so I've been practicing, and I'm working on just a couple of things, but it's the first thing I worked on was standing still and keeping my head still.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing I worked on was I tried to figure out how hard to throw the dart. Which, when you think about it, you just throw it. You don't think about stuff like that.
Well, the difference between you and me is when, after I stopped playing, well, I moved up here and started playing steel tip. I still didn't think it. I just went up and threw. And then when I apparently was decent and moved up and started playing better people, and then eventually got to the point where, I was getting beat, then I started thinking about, well, why isn't the dart going in? And then it just went straight downhill from there.
Oh, right. Thinking can only hurt the team.
Once I started thinking, my game just got really worse instead of just going up there and throwing.
Well, I had somebody insisting, and more than one, that the more they practice, the worse they get. And I'm like, well, you don't know how to practice then.
Yeah.
Like I always tell Jill, I'm like, you can only work on one thing at a time. So whatever it is, just work on that and leave everything else alone. Yeah. And once you iron out whatever the one thing is,
move on.
Right. Like, for instance, you need to take the dart back. That's what I was going to explain. I was going to explain, at some point I said target line, and somebody sent an email, what do you mean by the target line? Right?
Okay. I'll believe you.
Okay. For people that don't know what I mean by target line, imagine your dart is the size of a pool cue. Okay? The target line is the intended line that you want your dart to follow. From the point of your release to the point where it hits the board, there's a straight line there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Your target line, however, hypothetically extends 6 inches through the board and 6 inches behind you. So what you want to do, where's the camera? What you want to do is take the dart back straight back on your target line and then go straight through your target line, and the dart will go straight, all other things being equal. What you don't want to do is take the dart back outside your target line, because invariably what you will do is you'll throw across your target line. So if you take it back too far to the right, you miss to the left. If you take it back too far to the left, you miss to the right.
Yeah.
All other things being equal. Right? This is stuff that, I kind of learned from golf that I applied to golf, or I applied to darts. So when you're talking about the target line, you're talking about taking the dart straight back, which means you have to keep the dart straight as well. Correct. So you can't have the dart twisting in your fingers as you're bringing it back. You have to bring it nice back on a straight line and then nice straight through to the target line. That's one of the things that, because they throw so hard, it's hard to pick up on a tape if you watch on YouTube some of these English pros.
Your target line is 6 inches behind your stopping point. How do you figure out where your stopping point is? Right?
Well, it's not that it's 6. It doesn't stop. It goes to infinity.
Well, sure.
But what I'm saying is, like, if you bring the dart here, your target line actually extends behind it.
Right. It's just got to line up with it.
Yeah, there's a line that you're trying to throw the dart
Right.
There's a line you're trying to throw the dart in, and you want to make sure that, you're following it all the way. Like, there are some people that twist the dart as they come back. I would never recommend that to anybody, because you have to twist it back
right
the same
back
way going through, right? Same way somebody comes up to me and he's like, how do I get my darts to spin counterclockwise in the air? And I'm like, huh? What? Well, they don't. It's like, oh, I've been watching them. Yes, they do. And I'm like, all right, look. I mean, I may not throw as hard as some people, but, the dart is moving at I don't know how many feet per second, and don't tell me that you can tell
it's going
which way the flights are spinning. It's an optical illusion, and plus I have, like, rotating flights anyway. So, but you don't deliberately try to twist the dart.
Yeah.
You don't try to put spin on the dart like you would try to put spin on a curveball or cutter or a screwball or, what have you. Yeah, you don't do that either. So what did we? Okay, so we're target. We need a cutoff for the beginners.
Okay,
and I'm thinking, well, let's go back to that tip for the time challenge where we said you throw one dart in the fat of every number and your last dart at the bull. That's
right. 21 darts,
7 rounds. When you can hit all 21 in a row, you're no longer a beginner.
Okay.
How's that sound?
Yeah, because, it's not as easy as you think.
Well, nothing's as easy as you think, but, if you try it.
Yeah.
I remember, like, watching Johnny K at some tournament. It was, like, the first or second tournament I ever saw him at, and I'd never seen anybody playing 170 before. And I just stood there and watched them all play 170. And then Monday morning, I went home, and I'm like, well, I've never taken out a 170. So I went to the board. I'm like, it took me 4 minutes. Took out a 170. I'm like, okay, I guess it's doable. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean,
Sure.
Unless you try it, of course it's hard, but your margin for error for throwing a fat dart's like an inch in every direction. I mean, that's doable for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you.
But I would agree with that, because you can take yourself away from beginner as long as you're able to master that.
Yeah, I mean,
succeed at it.
Yeah, if you can throw 21 straight darts and not miss by a mile.
Yeah.
Then you're not a beginner anymore.
Right.
And then we'll have intermediate drills for people. So I would. What do you think? You vote for that for
I'll
the
vote
cutoff?
for that.
And I guarantee you, most people, if they try it, will be able to do it. In a relatively short period of time. It's not the sort of thing anybody tries.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, right, and same thing. And the people, obviously, if the people that it takes longer to do, then all of a sudden,
like I'm not going to guarantee that Darren Young can do it.
It's a pretty safe bet.
Well, I don't know if he's tried it. We can ask him if he can do it. I'm pretty sure Trish Grezik can do it. I'm going to leave that alone.
Okay.
Well, we could we'll take one more break, and then we'll give the results for the PDC and the Darts Live. There's a couple of PDC issues we can talk about. So are we agreed on that?
We are agreed on that.
The around the world thing, that's your cutoff for
21
beginner?
darts around the world, hitting every single.
Okay, and then next week we will introduce for the beginners. We'll structure a little practice regimen for them. Write that down. That's a promise we're going to make. Wow, half an hour just to figure out what the cutoff was. We should work more offline. Okay, we'll be back in it. We'll be back in a minute. Trish beat Gordon 6-3, and I haven't heard a peep out of Gordon. Skinny beds. It's just beginners.
Yeah.
Killing me. I don't know who some of these people are.
Yeah. We're not trying to make it hard. We're trying to get them interested in the game.
So you got the results. We'll do the Darts Live results, and then ask me what I thought of the.
That's the one we got left.
Yeah, so do that one first, and we'll talk about that. Okay. And then we'll finish with the North American. Okay, we're back for the fourth quarter, brought to you by the Dart Zone.
Stay in the zone.
The DartZone.com is an official Cosmo distributor. Also, thanks to Redwood Darts and Windy City Fabricators. We do have results from the PDC North American event in London, Ontario. That was stop number 2 in the North American Pro Tour. But first, how about Darts Live?
Darts Live, Stage 6.
Stage 6.
Top 4, Scott Kirchner and Shingo Enomata. Paul Lim gets second, and Royden Lamb gets first.
Royden Lamb gets first and also takes over number 1. They have like a cumulative standings thing.
Okay.
So Royden passed up Paul Lim, and he's top on the points list now.
And this is what you watched all 9 hours of?
Yeah.
So obviously it was...
Well, there were some Americans there, and I got a chance to see a lot of them, especially in the early rounds. They had an American play every match. So I got to see Big Dog play. I got to see Benny Dersch play. Benny lost to Shingo in top 8. The exact same way that Scott Kirchner lost to Shingo. No, Scott Kirchner lost to Royden Lamb. And the same way Paul Lim lost to Royden Lamb, where they had legs basically halfway through, it looked like they had won. And then by the time the 15 and 16s are gone, they're behind.
Okay.
So it's a good object lesson for cricket players, which cricket.
Here we go again.
Well, I'm sorry, but I mean, it requires so much less skill than a 501 game. It's not even fun.
Right.
But anyway,
You're on the record for saying that before too. So see,
yeah,
there
I
you
believe
go, repeating
yeah, I
yourself.
believe we're repeating ourselves. But it was I really enjoyed Scotty got ahead, got behind, and looked like he was at death's door. And he threw a 6 count on the Bulls. And the look on Royden Lamb's face was, "Are you kidding me, man?" And it got Scott an extra 3 or 4 rounds, but eventually he couldn't overcome. He basically kind of needed to do it again at some point. But I think he threw like 5 straight double Bulls. He threw 3, and then he threw 2 more or something. So I mean, it was really like, wow, check it out. Scotty's gonna hold him off here. But I mean, in soft tip, in steel, I've done it in steel against people where I've been so good on the bull that I outscored them.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's really doable in soft tip because the triples are
so big.
Well, I mean, they're bigger than steel. I mean, I'm not going to be one of these guys that says, "Oh, well, how can you miss? The thing's so big." But if you look at the top players play, I mean, they're getting an awful lot of points on 15s and 16s. What's a 7 count? And 105 and 112.
Yeah.
So you need 5 bulls around just to exceed those, and 4 you're getting beat against 7 counts. So it was pretty impressive watching Scotty fight him off, though. That was pretty nice.
Right.
Scott, and they're playing the 701 where. The bull's worth 50. You can go out on the bull. You can go out on a triple. You can go out on basically anything but a single. And, I think I saw Royden Lamb throw 2 perfect games, I think.
How many legs were each match?
It's best of 5. You go 701 cricket, 701 cricket, and then if you make a 5th leg, you diddle. Winner of the diddle can choose either the game or to go first.
Okay. And
then if you lose the diddle, you choose whatever they didn't do. So what invariably happens is if you win the diddle in the 5th leg, you pick going first.
Yeah.
And then they invariably pick cricket because, you could throw a perfect game. They're not that uncommon.
Yeah.
In soft tip among the top players. But it was kind of funny watching it because I don't know if it was a pressure or what, but guys would just suddenly, everybody that I saw lose looked at one point like they were going to win, and then all of a sudden, one bad round, and the entire game flips over.
Yeah.
So it's like I watched it because I've been telling people I don't play enough soft tip that I don't know what a good standard of play is. So I don't know if I'm playing good or not. So it gives me some basis for comparison. I didn't get a chance. I know there were other Americans that made top 32, top 16. Heckman was there. I think he made top 32. Big Dog made top 32. Rich Espinoza made top 32. Stamey was there. I think he was out early. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting any Americans. I thought Benny Durst played good up to the point where, he had the one bad round and fell behind and couldn't catch up. So, I mean, it's really strange when you fall behind in soft tip. If you don't get a little help, you're kind of hosed.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's different than steel. In steel, you always feel like you can come back with a perfect round. A perfect round will get you back in. But in soft tip, the other guy can throw a perfect round. So your perfect round
it's the opposite.
I don't know if it's the opposite. It's just, I don't know. There's some mental complexity there that I don't fully understand. I'm going to be going to the Darts Live thing at the end of September. I'm looking forward to that. So hopefully I'll have more to report then. Also, by the way, the third PDC event is in 2 weeks in Atlantic City. And you have to sign up by Monday. So you need to go to bullseyenews.com and click on the link, register online, or click on the little contact link and call Jay and give me a credit card or however you want to do it. But I'm hoping we're going to have a nice turnout in Atlantic City for the PDC. They haven't updated the money, but it looks to me like right now Darren is in first with 2,200, and I think Joe Cheney is tied with Gary Mawson in second with like 800.
Okay.
Because Cheney had 2 top 8s and Mawson made a top 4.
Right.
Oh, spoiler alert. But what that means is that almost anyone can finish in the top 2 of the Americans on the list. So it's relatively wide open. All you got to do is get Darren in the first round, knock him out.
Right, easy.
And then, make the final, and you should be able to make the top 2, because what I suspect is the top 2 Americans are going to play in that PDC World Cup thing like Mawson and Darren Young did this year, right? They'll have to take it off this list. So whatever the top 2 Americans are, it's going to be like totally cool. And if it's Gary and Darren again, then fine. They did really good last year. I mean, they lost to England, but they put up quite a fight. And they stopped showing that on TV now. They're back to the European Championships. So let's God, where does the time go?
The PDC North American Tour?
Yeah.
Which, with the spoiler alert already given, top 4, Dan Olson and Gary Mawson. Darren Young got second, and Andre Carmen wins that one.
Yeah, it was funny because somebody said, some local one. And I'm like, well, who is the local? And he's like, Andre Carmen. I'm like, wow. Andre's been around a long time. Andre's a great player. He comes in. He's been to the States. I think I saw him in Virginia Beach this year. I've seen him in Chicago. I've seen him in Vegas. So he's one of those guys that pops in and plays in America now and then. Great player. He's a lanky guy, lanky and not real heavy. So he's kind of like built like me. Right. So it gives hope to the thinner people that you can still win these things.
Okay. I didn't know there was a lot of thin people out there without hope that they weren't going to be good at darts.
I'm just rambling on here. We should give an atta girl to Trish Grezik, who made it. I think she won at least one round. I'm not sure if she won 2, but here's one of the top women knocking heads with the guys, and she won a couple of matches in Chicago too, like Stacy did. Right. So all you guys that are ripping on the women, better stop.
Yeah,
you better stop because these girls.
The gap is closing.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I didn't see any stats from the match or anything, but I'd have to say that don't underestimate the I don't underestimate anybody. I mean, I always figure whoever I'm coming to the line against is going to just. They're trying to win. And 9 counts. Yeah, well, sure they are. I mean, I'm more afraid of strangers than I am of people I know. I don't know who these guys are. Must be awesome. If he's here, right? That's kind of always my attitude, so maybe that's the other end of the spectrum. But, yeah, I wouldn't take any of these women for granted. So congrats anyway to Trish. I know she's been working hard on her game and has made a lot of progress this year. I think she'd agree with that. So, that's good. There were some other guys with good results. Joe Cheney made another top 8, so that's 2 for 2 for him. Trying to think. I think DJ Sayre made top 16. I mean, the Americans were badly outnumbered. So, I mean, that's why I don't remember who I picked or anything, but I was like, there's so many Canadians. It's like, I'd go with one of them. Yeah. And
it's a safer bet.
Yeah, and I guess there were some pretty competitive matches. I heard some things. So I tried to get a hold of somebody to tell us about it, but got a little hung up today.
Really?
So, yeah. That's the thing about doing the shows on Tuesday, because people are still traveling on Monday. Like, I tried to get a hold of Scotty Kirchner to talk about Darts Live, and he wasn't back yet. Okay. It's like an 18-hour flight. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the disadvantage to doing the show on Tuesdays is I can't get people all the time, if they're traveling. Yeah. So, so what are we doing next week? We have to come up with some practice regimen?
Beginner's practice regiment.
Okay.
And maybe a possible set of exercises.
So we have to graduated exercises for beginners, and then what? The week after we got to do intermediate?
Well, it doesn't have to be. I mean, we can ease into it. I don't have to have it completed in a week.
Should we be talking about cricket?
Apparently
like
not.
Strategy. Well, we couldn't do it before, but I mean now we could actually.
I don't see why
put
not.
up like a scoreboard and talk about situations and stuff because I've avoided it in the past, but nobody seems to when I say I play hyper modern cricket, nobody seems to know what I'm talking about, and then when I try to explain it, their eyes glaze over. So we should probably kind of pencil that in for the future where we start talking about like some cricket
strategies.
Well, I grew up playing chess, and I grew up playing not hyper modern chess, but I grew up playing modern chess where you don't. It used to be that what chess masters did was they would memorize lines, like, you know, King's Gambit declined. There's like all these lines, and then you get to this one position all the time, and you play all these variations. What they started doing with chess, though, is they started eliminating the lines and just analyzing positions. Like, what can you do from this position? What can you do from that position? Because a lot of the lines and the openings kind of like you end up in certain places, right? And so I always thought that that was the best way to analyze cricket. And the only way to do it is you have to understand the underlying principles that make up the strategy. So when you look at a position, you have the fundamental principles in your head, and then you can analyze the position correctly and come up with the best your best shot. Right? Based on, you know, whatever variables happen to be in the game. So we could try that with cricket positions and kind of see how that works for everybody.
All right.
Can we wrap it up?
Sure. Why not?
Okay, one last time, we're brought to you by the Dart Zone.
Stay in the zone.
TheDartZone.com is an official Cosmo distributor. Next week, we'll do this thing for the beginners. We'll also have results from WADA. As much as I'd like to go, I don't think I'll be going because I think I got Cub tickets for Friday, although don't tell Jill.
Uh-oh.
Because I think I can only get one. She's going to be unhappy.
Yeah.
She's probably still in the chat room. I'll probably hear about that.
Snooky says the seating in London was a joke. Did you hear anything about that?
Well, what I heard in London is they were only going to seat 2 people.
Oh, okay.
They don't have anything to seat on, right? They didn't want to use like the NAPTA rankings for a PDC event in Chicago, so Chicago was totally unseated. I looked at some of the draws, and I was like, okay, there were some what looked to me like some pretty open brackets, you know, where, you know, and then some that were like extremely tough.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of people that I looked at their bracket and I was like, wow.
Oops.
Well, I'm not sure they took advantage of it, but there's a lot of Canadians I don't know, too. So,
yeah.
I mean,
it's hard to analyze it.
Yeah, because I don't recognize their name.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I looked on the NFDC for some of them, but the Atlantic City event should be seeded at least through the top 16 because now they have results from 2 events.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they'll at least seed 4 or 8.
4 to 8.
Seeding would be great, but you know, I looked through all the results from London, and I didn't really see too many people that had a right to complain about their seeding. Right? I mean, Part and McNeil were going to meet, I think, in the top 8 or top 16. If they were seeded, if they were seeded, that's possible. Well, yeah, they did. So they didn't meet in the first round. I didn't see too many totally brutal first round matches.
Right.
I saw a couple, but you know, not as many as there were in Chicago.
Yeah.
Chicago had some real bad ones. So, and then there was also more people, so you had to play into the round of 128, which gave everybody, you know, with a bigger field, your odds of having a really rough first round match go down.
Yeah.
Go up. It's less likely when you have more people.
I knew what you meant.
That you're gonna, top 2 seeds are gonna play. So hopefully, they'll have something to seed by now. They've had 2 events, and then when they have 5 next year, they'll use the 3 events from this year for seeding. So the seeding's gonna work itself out. I don't really care. I want things to be seeded, but I've been seeded before, and it's like, so what?
Sure.
You know, you still have to execute, and if you don't, you're going to get beat.
Yeah.
Because, you know, people aren't going there to get their butts kicked. They're going there to, you know, kick your butt. So if you're not bringing a game, you're in big trouble. It doesn't really matter who you're playing.
Right. Now, with the talent out there.
Yeah, so it'll be nice once they do get stuff seeded. By the way, if you go to NAPTA, NYPDA.net. They updated their ratings or their rankings as of the end of July. So I'm trying to think. I stayed the same. Gordon passed me up, and Widmeyer dropped below me.
Really?
But I actually still ended up 6. So that's Darren's way, way, way in front now. And actually, Bob Seneve passed up Larry.
Okay.
So off the top of my head, Darren's first, Bob Seneve is second, Larry Butler's third, Tom Sawyer's fourth, Gordon Dixon's fifth, I'm sixth, Widmeyer's seventh. I think Terry Hayhurst was eighth. I think Brandon Rogers is in the top 10 with, I want to say, Sean Brenneman. I don't remember.
All right.
So, and also the Attendance Daily Organization updated their ratings, but again, they update them, but then they're still missing tournaments. So you never know. You never know when they're current. You know what I mean? I mean, what I wish they would do is say, look, these are current as of, end of June.
June, right?
And we're not going to publish the end of July until we get everything from July. But then if they don't.
I'm sure
I don't like their ratings anyway.
Right. So what difference does it make?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, how do you put out ratings that are incomplete? How do you put out rankings that are incomplete? Where I'm going to use this tournament, but there's a tournament 2 weeks ago that's not in there. So what are you actually saying? You're admitting to me that your rankings are completely and utterly inaccurate, but you're going to publish them anyway. Why?
I don't have an answer to that.
Why would you publish something that you know to be factually inaccurate? Why would you do that?
Because they feel like they got to put something out there? I'm not disagreeing
slop
with you.
Slop in, slop out. I mean, it's like, okay, I understand that they're not getting the results in a timely manner from the tournaments. I get that.
Yeah.
But at some point, until you get everything before day X, you cannot publish their rankings from day X because they are factually inaccurate.
True.
And you know that they're inaccurate.
True.
So either get the results
or don't
post anything. Don't update your ratings.
All right.
Or update them anyway, even though you didn't get your sanctioning fee. Whatever. Because it's the players that get hosed. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, it's silly. It's like Major League Baseball. You're looking at the standings, right? Well,
so if they had the results but they didn't get their sanctioning fee, they wouldn't.
They don't know.
And
right,
the players
exactly.
have nothing to do with that.
Right.
So that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It's what they've always done.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure that there's because I looked to see if they updated, and they did update them. But something's missing. I think Nashville's missing. But they have Stanford, which was 2 weeks after Nashville. So why would you update them for Stanford when you're still missing Nashville?
Right.
What do you accomplish with that? Except to make sure everybody knows that you have rankings that are wrong.
Right.
Because they're wrong. Because if you played in Nashville and you got points, the ADO is saying, well, as far as we're concerned, you didn't get points. Well, let me tell you, I was there. Yeah. I saw that guy win. So I know he's got points.
Yeah.
So I've heard people say they do it on purpose, that, they're favoring certain players. I don't buy into that at all. But at the same time, you can't defend yourself against accusations if you're going to put stuff out that you know is wrong.
Yeah. I agree with that. But they still continue to do it.
I don't know. We got to get Chris on the show. We got to get Chris Helms on the show and talk to him about some of these things. Because, I mean,
just to have an answer?
They've always done it this way.
We need a reason.
Well, they've always done it this way. And is there a better way to do it? I think, what are you punishing the players for?
Right.
Because the payers put in their sanctioning fee. The fact that you didn't get from the tournament, I have nothing to do with that. But I still earned whatever points I got, so where are they? Because I paid for them.
Yeah.
The fact that you're not publishing them, I should sue you. I should get a temporary restraining order saying you cannot publish your rankings until you provide the ones that I've paid for. It's totally within the realm of reasonability. Well, I would never do that. I mean, because I don't really care.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying, in principle, it's silly to do it that way.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do if your rankings are accurate? Are the tournament's not going to send you the money anyway? I mean, of course they will. I would think. I don't know. How do we get on this? We're supposed to be wrapping the show
back to the Cubs game. You're not sure if you're going or you are going.
So far, I think I have only one ticket.
Oh, okay.
It's one of Ron Santo's seats.
Nice. But you at least have one.
So I'm told.
Okay.
I'm trying to get a second one.
Well, I'm sure there's plenty available.
Well, yeah. No, these are supposedly like really like VIP seats.
Right.
So I'm like,
but you could get her into the stadium, the ballpark.
Yeah, she just can't sit with me.
Right.
Right.
At least she could be at the game. You guys can text back.
Oh, is this going on in the chat room there? Okay. This show's degenerated into I don't know what. Okay, let's wrap it up. Everybody, we're brought to you by the Dart Zone.
Stay in the zone.
TheDartZone.com is an official Cosmo distributor, and we will Dart talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening.
Right.